All right, ladies and gentlemen, for today we're going to look at some things that are true about lines now that we've talked about angles. So what I need you to do is I need you to get out your note sheet that looks like this. If you don't have one, there's if you're in the classroom, there's one up in the front table. If you are watching this at home, there is one on the Moodle page labeled as the Transversal note sheet. So please stop the video for a second. Go and get that, and then follow along with me. Now that you have this, what I want you to do is, before we look at this side of it, what I need you to do is I need you to turn the paper over, and I got a few notes that I want you to write onto the back side of that. So if you go over to the back side, a couple things that I want you to put down. First off is some definitions of some relationship between the lines. The first one is perpendicular lines, and those by definition are lines that intersect at right angles. Okay? Now, a quick reminder of some of the terms that here. First off, the word intersect, that means cross, okay, or touch. Okay? They cross or touch. That's what intersect means when we're looking at it. And for a perpendicular line, those would be lines that look something like this. We'll label this one angle or line L and this one line M. And usually what they'll do to mark these off is they'll put a little square in the corner, which is our indication that we have a 90-degree angle. So when we see that little square that's in there with the lines that are written, we can say that angle L, or line L and line M are perpendicular. The way we write it in math is we write that L is perpendicular to M. This little symbol right here means perpendicular. Okay, that means perpendicular. So we have that little symbol. It's like an upside down T that you're going to see. And it's just a shorthand way of writing that information. Okay. The next definition that we have is the definition of parallel lines. And by definition, parallel lines are lines that will never, oops, sorry, can't spell. Those are lines that will never intersect. Okay? They'll never touch each other. And those are going to be two lines that are drawn like this. And we'll label this one line P and this one line Q to have names. In a picture, the way they will show it, just like this, the red box for the perpendicular, what they'll do is they'll put two arrowheads on the two lines to show that they are perpendicular. Even though the picture may not look like they're perpendicular, you may look at the picture that I drew and say, well, those look like they'll cross. As soon as I put those little arrows in there, that means that they are parallel. Now, the shorthand way of writing this is going to be that P is parallel to Q. So what you see is this little symbol right here of the two lines next to each other, that means parallel. That they're parallel to each other. Okay, parallel to each other. All right, one more definition on the back of this, and then we'll talk about the other side of this paper, okay, that we have. All right, the next definition that we have is the definition of a transversal. Now, by definition, a transversal is a line that intersects two or more other lines. Okay? Transverse is a line that intersects two or more other lines that we have. And so example would be if I have line L and I have line M, okay? And then we have a line that comes through like this, and we'll call that line R. We would say that R is a transversal because it goes through line L and line M. So a transversal is a line that intersects two or more of these lines. Now, if the transversal intersects two lines that are parallel, then there's some interesting things that we know to be true. So, what I would like you to do is, flip over to the other side of your page so that you see this that's here, okay? So you see this is here, and we're going to talk about these, and notice that we have some lines that are here in all of these pictures. Notice that we have two parallel lines, and the way we know we have two parallel lines are those two arrows that are there. Okay, those represent that those two lines are parallel, and this line that's drawn right here would be a transversal. Okay, we know those things to be true. Okay, all right. So now on the paper that you have up here at the top where there's nothing written, you need to write the following statement, and the following statement is this: if two parallel, hold on a second here. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the following is true. Okay? And the following is true. Now, the key about all of these is notice in all of these statements, and I'm going to focus on one part of these statements on each one of them. Notice the last statement in each one of these is the statement are congruent, are congruent, are congruent. And as a reminder, remember you wrote into your notes, the word congruent means that they are the same shape and size. So what we're looking at is these labeled that are here give us places in this arrangement of angles that we have. So we have our two parallel lines cut by a transversal, and then notice on the picture they labeled 8 angles for you, with the numbers 1 through 8. Now, with this, what they tell us in the first statement, alternate interior angles. Well, first off, let's find some things that are important about this. Interior means the inside of something. So what that's going to be is, if I focus on my two parallel lines here, it's going to be the angles that are on the inside of that. So if I focus on the ones that are on the inside of that, that gives me the angles 2, 5, 3, and 8. Those would be my interior angles. Now, this says alternate. So it's those on the opposite side of the transversal. So the first one they tell us is that angle 2 and angle 8 would be congruent. There's one other pair that is there. Can you guess what it is? Well, the other pair that would be there is angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. So please write that on your paper. So in here, there is another pair of alternate interior angles that we have. And the thing that we know about it is, if I tell you the size of angle 5, you know that angle 3 is exactly the same. Now, the numbering doesn't matter. You could number them a different way. What matters is where they are. So the alternate interior angles, in this case, are going to be 2 and 8, which they gave us, and then 3 and 5, which are the other pair that is there. Okay? So now, let's look at the next one with the spots that we have. So the next one is going to be the alternate exterior angles. Now again, exterior means on the outside. So again, we focus on the two parallel lines, and we want to look at the angles that are on the outside of those two lines. So the angles that would be on the outside of those two lines would be angle 1, angle 4, angle 6, and angle 7. So those angles are on the outside of the parallel lines. Now again, it says alternate exterior angles, and so it says those on the opposite side of the transversal. So that means that I would take and say, and they tell us that angle 4 and angle 6 are congruent. That's the one that they give us. That's here. Well, there's another pair of alternate exterior angles, and that would be, can you guess? Well, obviously, angle 1 and angle 7. So on your paper, you can put angle 1 is congruent to angle 7 that we have. So again, alternate exterior. Now again, if I tell you what the measure of angle 7 is, you can tell me the measure of angle 1 is exactly the same that we have. And again, that's by the definition of congruent, meaning same size and shape. All right, the next one, corresponding angles that we have here. Now, those are angles in the same position on the two lines in the relationship to the transversal. So they're in the same position. The ones they give us to look at are angle 3 and angle 7 are corresponding angles. And notice, in the grouping, they are in the same spot. Well, what would be another example of corresponding angles? Angles that are in the same spot. Well, let's look and see. Angle 2 is located right here. Which angle's in the same spot on the other pairing? Well, it would be angle 6. So down here, you can put that angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. What's another pair that is there? Well, how about angle 1 and angle 5? So you can write on your paper over here, angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. And then one last matching, angle 4 and angle 8. So you can write on your paper over here, angle 4 is congruent to angle 8. So again, on that matching that we have, if I tell you the size of angle 8, you know that angle 4 is exactly the same size. Okay? Now, you can use any of these to help you answer questions that we have about, and I'm going to give you in today's assignment a chance to do that, or a chance to match those up. Now, what I want you to do is, and I need to scroll up on my page here a little bit, is I'm going to ask you to add a couple things here to the bottom of this paper that we have. So give me just a moment here to do some rearranging that we have and slide down just a little bit so I got some spacing. And that is that in our relationship that we have here, there are some other things that we know, some of the old ones that we have that still work. So notice some of these. First off, I'm going to make a statement. Angle 5 is congruent to angle 7. So find those two listed here and here. Why are those two equal to each other? Well, if you remember back to what we did last week, that's because these are vertical angles. So even in the statement, if I told you the measure of angle 1 here, and I asked you to give me the measure of angle 3, those are going to be the same because they're vertical angles. So all of those other ones that we have still hold true. The other one that we have is, I also know this, angle 2 plus angle 3 equals 180 degrees. And the reason for that is because notice, when you put angle 2 and angle 3 together, they make this straight line right here. So we know that those add up to 180 degrees. Well, we also know that angle 3 plus angle 4 equals 180 degrees because those two make a straight line right there. And there's a whole bunch of those pairs that are going to be in there for those. And I just want to remind you of those things from the discussion that we had last week from this. All right, so today what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to do an assignment out of the book. And the assignment out of the book that we are going to do, and I got to do a little bit of rearranging here. Just a second, so let me clear this out that we did. Let me get to the page that we have with this. And again, if you go to the Moodle page that we have for this, log in, and I'll log in as myself here. What we are going to do for our assignment comes from, apologize, I got a few extra things here that you don't see just yet. Yours will look a little bit different than mine, but I just got to find my page numbers here a second. I forgot about them. It's listed right there. It's going to be, you need to do page 259, 260, numbers 9 through 12, and 30 through 37. So page 250, page 259 and 260, numbers 9 through 12 and 30 through 37 to work on. And now again, the correct answers for those are in the Moodle for you. So you're going to need to go to the Moodle page to get that. And then you can either use your book or you can use the book that's on the internet or on the Moodle here. Let me show you the page that we're on. 259. There's numbers 9 through 12. Okay, there's numbers 9 through 12. And notice in numbers 9 through 12 that they give you a transversal that is here. Just a second here for my thing to catch up. They give you a line, two parallel lines cut by a transversal, and then they ask you some questions. Find the measure of angle 4 if the measure of angle 5 is 43. Well, I know this one is 43 degrees, and they want me to tell that one. Well, if I go back to my notes, those are in location. Those are going to be, just a second here to go back to my notes that we have. Those are going to be corresponding angles that we have. So we come here, we look, and I have corresponding. They are in the same location. Wrong screen. Sorry. Not over here. Okay. They are in the same location, so I would say that the answer to this one is going to be 43 degrees also. And so you're going to look at being able to figure out what the missing piece of information is, okay, that we have. So finish up those assignments that are there. Again, hang on to those because those will be on your homework copy for next Monday that we have.